I was so excited to get a job at the happiest place on earth. I grew up in Orlando, so my mom took me rather frequently as a young lad, and I was excited I could take mine for free from now on. I got a job as a nighttime security guard. I just had to sit and watch cameras. The parks aren't always empty at night, and I had to just make sure nothing suspicious was going on. I was so thrilled. I didn't have to put up with what day shift guards did. They had to deal with people drunk in Epcot, those feeling entitled because they spent thousands ECT. I remember in training asking a guard if he's seen anything weird. He told me on the Haunted Mansion ride they seen a woman throw her daughter's ashes out. When they confronted her, she truly believed her daughter would be a happy haunt she would see every time she rode the ride. Let me stop now and tell you, you'll get caught dumping ashes and won't be happy with what they do to your loved one's remains. The strangest thing I was taught was Code 999, another Haunted Mansion reference. I was taught to use it if you see something odd, something unexplainable. We usually rotated what parks we would watch, sometimes certain hotels or even Disney Springs. I got Hollywood Studios last night. I love being able to patrol the grounds and see how Galaxy's Edge looks. I sat in my office watching cameras with my big mug of coffee they keep for us. And then things got stranger. I checked my watch and it was 3 a.m. I watched the Mickey casually waltz down the street going towards Rock and Roller Coaster. We never characters at this time. And plus, most people traveling were going to use the underground tunnels. I stared in disbelief as I seen a Donald Duck walking casually, then Goofy, then Pluto, then multiple characters, all going towards that way. My walkie was pure static, and I mumbled, "Code 999, repeat code 999. This is Bill and AK, what's going on? Why are there characters in the park?" All I heard was pure static. My gut told me to wait and just see what happens. Maybe more security comes, maybe law enforcement, maybe just let whatever's going to happen, let happen. But I figured I could go solo. My walkie wouldn't get a hold of any other guards in HS or anywhere. I snuck to a dressing room and found an old Olaf costume. I put it on and clumsily walked towards Rock on Roller Coaster. All the noise wasn't there, but where Phantasmic was. Typing this out feels so weird. It wasn't raining. But when I got near the commotion, it started lightning and rain smacked hard and fast. I glanced and seen characters fill the benches and seats around the area. On top of a large rock, there stood someone. I sat next to a Minnie. She turned to me and just stared. Didn't say any words, but just stared at me. She turned back and glanced at the stage. The intercom cut on. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here he is. Mickey Mouse." I watched as characters began to bow and cheer. I tried to do the same so I wasn't noticed. I looked to my right side and a little girl stood next to me cheering. "Hey everybody. Gee, thanks for coming. I'm sure glad to see you all. Now to business. We got this man here." "What's your name, pal?" A man tied to a table was carried in by more characters. That was Jerry. He was in training with me. Dottie looked beaten up, bloodied. "It doesn't matter your name, actually," chuckled Mickey. "All right, gang. It's time we offer a new vessel for Walt to dwell in. I think this man may be a good fit," he screamed while he was gagged. Mickey lifted a knife to the sky and stopped Dot. He stared at everyone for what felt like an hour. He sniffed. "One of you is an imposter. Who is it?" "Shit. Listen, pal, we need Walt more than ever, and can't do this with you here." Characters shuffled around in confusion trying to find me, and the ghost girl whispered to me, "Get out." I'm paralyzed in fear. This seems way too freaky. Then my walkie went off. 10-4 code 999, on way double. I turn around expecting to be mailed by characters, but everyone's gone. I'm alone in the stands. Except that Mickey on stage is now walking towards me fast with his white gloves stretched towards me. His eyeballs are missing. I must have ran faster. I gotta find Jerry. He's gotta be here somewhere. Back in 2014, I worked for a relatively large manufacturing plant in Vermont. The shift that I worked was 12 hours long, from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Everyone in the facility worked these long hours, so in return, the owner of the company allowed us to have 1-hour sleep breaks in our cars, so long as we didn't abuse the privilege. For the sake of safety, we had to drive off-site for these breaks, but the company was located up in the forest, so we could pull alongside the road that leads up to the plant and still be able to sleep in pitch-black darkness. Usually, I would take my sleep break at the same time as my coworker, so we could park behind each other and make sure the other person didn't oversleep. This day, however, my coworker was out sick, so I'd be taking my break alone. The alarm on my phone went off at 11 p.m., which told me it was time to get a nap in. I grabbed some chips from the vending machine on the way out and walked into the parking lot. Once I was inside my car, I rolled down my windows to let the spring breeze blow through. It was the middle of May, so it was just cool enough to not cook yourself inside the car. I proceeded to drive out of the security gate and up the hill that overlooks the worksite. All in all, it was probably a 3-minute drive. I put my car in a park and finished my bag of chips. The air felt so good that I decided to leave my windows rolled down while I slept. I reclined my seat, set an alarm on my phone for 12 a.m. and closed my eyes. Before I knew it, I quickly fell asleep to the sound of the frogs and crickets chirping in the forest. I remember waking up to the sound of something rustling along the forest out my passenger side window. I instantly thought it was a bear. Although I've never seen one in the 10 years I've lived here. It might be a deer, I thought, but rolled up my windows just in case. I strained my eyes to see what was moving along the forest, but I couldn't make out any shapes beyond the first row of trees. The noise had stopped, and I continued to look for another 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah, it must have been a deer. Usually I'm not this cautious, but when you just wake up from a nap, your mind has a tendency to overthink the little things. I looked at my phone and saw that only 30 minutes had gone by since I parked, and decided I was going to try to make the most out of what little time I had left. I went to recline my seat, and my eyes were met with a disheveled-looking man that had his face pressed up against my driver's side window. I jolted, and every hair on my body felt like it had electricity running through it. He widened his eyes after he saw that I noticed him and said in a low voice, almost as if he was whispering, "Hey, can you give me a ride to the store?" I turned the keys in my ignition, and at the same time I heard the handle of my driver's side door trying to be opened. The man started pounding on the glass, and I floored it out of there and did not look back at all. I just remember keeping my head down in case he had a gun and tried to shoot at me. I didn't stop until I was at the security gate to tell the guard what I had saw. The guard looked extremely concerned and radioed for backup at his station in case the man tried to enter our site. The police were contacted to search the perimeter of fencing that runs around our entire company, and they reported that they were not able to find anyone out along the road. From that day on, I never took another sleep break and am now extremely cautious of my surroundings every time I am in the parking lot of work. It's been 6 years since this event, and I still sometimes feel like I am going to see his face pressed up against the window of my bedroom one night. I was a highway patrolman for 20 years, and I've seen it all. High-speed chases, gunfights, near-death encounters. But nothing compares to what happened in the summer of 2018. It was a graveyard shift. The stillness of the night had a way of amplifying every sound, every shadow. Most nights were the usual mix of speeding drivers and DUI stops. That night started no differently, Dot. I was stationed at my usual spot near mile marker 62, radar gun in hand, coffee thermos perched on the dash. The radio buzzed with routine chatter. Then, just as I was finishing my second cup of coffee, dispatch chatted in. Any available units near Route 18, we have a 10 to 90. I was confused. I'd never heard that code before. Dispatch, this is Unit 504. What's a 10 to 90? Silence. Dispatch? No response. Just static. Seconds later, coordinates popped up on my patrol car's computer. It was an isolated patch off the highway deep in the woods. Uneasy, I radioed my supervisor. "Hey Sarge, dispatch just paged me about a 10 to 90. What's the protocol?" His response was curt. "Ignore it. It wasn't meant for you." "Seriously?" "They gave me coordinates." "Drop it. 504? Get back to work." I hesitated, but orders were orders. The night dragged on with routine stops. Around 3 a.m., exhaustion hit, so I pulled into a donut shop. Yeah, I know the stereotype, but sometimes you just need the sugar rush. The shop was a dive, peeling paint, flickering neon sign, but it was open. Behind the counter stood a man so pale he looked like he'd been carved from marble. His fingers were unnaturally long, and he moved with a stiffness that gave me the creeps. What'd it be? His voice was raspy, like dead leaves rustling. Just coffee, and a couple of glazed. He slid my order across the counter without a word. His gaze lingered on me, unblinking, as if he were memorizing my face. Long night? He asked, his lips curling into a faint, unnatural smile. Yeah, graveyard shift. Never gets easier. He chuckled, a low, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. Be careful out there. You never know what might be lurking. I left in a hurry, the bell above the door jangling behind me. I was halfway to my car when the radio crackled again. Help me! The voice was faint, distorted but unmistakably human. I froze, my heart hammering. Dispatch, this is Unit 504. Did someone just broadcast a distress call? No response. I tried my supervisor. Nothing. Curiosity nodded me. Against my better judgment, I punched the coordinates into my GPS and set off. The drive took me 45 minutes deep into the highway forest. The road narrowed until it was barely more than a dirt path. My headlights cut through the thick darkness, revealing gnarled trees that seemed to close in around me. When the GPS announced I'd arrived, I was in the middle of nowhere. I stepped out of the car, gun holstered, flashlight in hand. The silence was unnatural. Not a single insect, not even the rustle of leaves. I radioed again. Dispatch, this is 504. I'm at the coordinates. What's going on? Static. I took a step forward. The ground was hard beneath my boots, but I couldn't hear my own footsteps. The air felt heavy, oppressive. Then, behind me, a twig snapped. I spun around, flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Nothing. Who's there? I called, unholstering my gun. The radio crackled to life again. Help me. The voice was deafening, as if it were screaming directly into my skull. I dropped the radio, clutching my ears before I could react. A heavy blow struck the back of my head, and everything went black. I woke up tied to a tree. My hands and feet were bound with rough rope, my head throbbing. The air reeked of damp earth and something metallic. Blood, maybe. 3 hooded figures stood before me, their faces obscured. They whispered among themselves, their voices low and guttural. One stepped forward. Why did you come here? I got a call. A distress call, I stammered. Why are you here? The figure repeated more forcefully. I was just doing my job. Look, killing me won't do you any good. My team knows I'm out here. They'll come looking, they whispered among themselves again. Then one of them nodded. Let him go, the leader said. Another figure stepped forward, cutting my bonds. My legs were weak, but I managed to stand. Take your gun. Leave. Do not come back. I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my weapon and stumbled back toward my car. My head swam, and my limbs felt heavy, like I'd been drugged. As I made my way down the path, figures began emerging from the shadows. Dozens of them, their faces pale and featureless. Don't come back, they chanted in unison. Don't come back. I reached my car and sped out of there, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. The next morning, I reported everything to my supervisor. He dismissed it as exhaustion-induced hallucinations and put me on paid leave. But I know what I saw. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that they're still watching me. I kept one of my radios as a memento of my time on the force. Sometimes, late at night, it crackles to life. Help me, the voice whispers, and sometimes it calls my name. Tonight, I've made up my mind. I'm going back. I don't care what's waiting for me in those woods. I need answers. Wish me luck.